Welcome back to my Colorado Mountain Garden, and happy Mother's Day. If you're a Colorado mountain mom, you are getting some snow probably at your house. We're at about 5 inches now. It's hard to tell because it did warm up this morning and then it got cold again, so now it's collecting, but it did melt down a little bit. So I can't be out in my garden, and so I thought I'd talk a little bit about some seed saving ideas that you can do if you're going to save seeds. I'm going to use my Micro Dwarf tomatoes as an example because they're the ones that are starting to form blooms on them now. And I'm going to pull this up, and I hope you can see it. Let me get my little, I don't know if you can, if that focuses in there right there. You can see it's just now starting to open. Now, I have my my tomatoes, there's that one, just now starting to open. I have these in different rooms, so I'm not worried about cross-pollination. But if these were out in my garden and they were in the same area, I would have to think about how can I not get these cross-pollinated. So if you have more than one variety of tomato or pepper, things like that, you've got to try and find a way to not get them cross-pollinated if you want them to stay true. And with these seeds, the dwarf seeds, they're a bit more expensive than just regular tomato seeds. So I'm going to try and save mine. After I save them and dry them, I will try and sprout some to see if I have good viability and stuff like that. But there's ways you can do it, and it's not 100% foolproof. You could still get cross-pollination. And it's going to be hard for me to show all the examples, or of the two that I have, just because these plants are so small. This one's about 7 inches tall, the Tiny Tim, and the Micro Dwarf is between 3.5 and 4 inches tall. This one only gets about 12 inches tall, maybe 14 at the very top. So a lot of people use these jewelry bags, and you can get these online. I think even Michael's has them. And then the idea is that before those blooms start opening, if it's out in your garden, you take it and you put that over where the blooms are, and then you can squish it down. You don't want to squeeze the branch or anything like that. And then you kind of pop it open until the flowers have fell off and you're sure you had the germination. Now, you may need to wiggle that around outside if it's not in the wind or something like that. I hope that all makes sense. I just don't want to smush my branch. So you would put it all the way over the branch, kind of like that. Squeeze it off. And then once the flower petals fall off and you start seeing your little tomatoes form, you don't need to have that bag on there anymore, because it's pollinated, but you want to mark that branch. And usually I just use like a little string or a ribbon or something like that. And then you want to let that tomato fully mature and become very ripe before you pull it off and save the seeds. I'll probably do a seed saving thing when some of these get bigger and they're really ripe. I can show you how I do my tomatoes. Now, the other thing that I have, and this one worked better for me in the past, this is a 1-gallon paint strainer, and it used to have Velcro on it. So I kind of left this little piece, not Velcro, elastic. But it would be very tight, and you could put that around a branch or a bunch of your peppers or something like that. And usually the elastic tightens around it, but you could also put a little clip or something around it. So these are a little bit better, I think, than these smaller bags, just because you're not going to smash your plant as much. Now, if this little one, let me move this out. If this, let's say I couldn't separate those plants, and this was my little Tiny Tim, and I didn't want it, not Tiny Tim, Orange Hat, and I didn't want it to have a chance of cross-pollinating with my Tiny Tim. So it's sewn all the way up, but I did go ahead and put a slit in it. And you can see I could just put this all the way over. I might put, if I was going to keep it like this, I'd probably put like a little skewer or something in there to kind of hold it up. And then I could use a rubber band around the bottom. And that's only until the petals of the flowers. Once the petals of the flowers start dying off, then you know the pollination is done on that particular flower. Now, if I was doing this, besides shaking it when the blooms got bigger, because these are such tiny little plants, I might even pull this into another room or something like that, pull it off, and use like a little Q-tip to pollinate those. But again, I have mine segregated, so I'm not really worried about it. Again, it's a 1 gallon paint strainers. They're not expensive. I think the hardware stores carry them. I think I got mine at Ace. I use this when I melt my beeswax, and I strain all the yuckies out of the beeswax before I put them in molds to mold up the beeswax to use for a later date. But you can see. But, you know, when it has the elastic on it, it's in about like that much. I don't know if that makes sense. So the elastic will go around it. With your pepper branches and some of the bigger tomato branches, they're a lot longer where you need to get into where the bloom is at. So that's why sometimes this doesn't work as well, because it's short. Now there's different size of these bags too. But I can tell you this right now, that the paint strainers are much cheaper than these little bags. These are just pretties. So I hope that helps you. If you have questions, you know, ask me. I probably didn't do the best job at explaining that, because I don't really have a good example of actually putting the little bag over the top of blooms and stuff like that. Maybe when they get out to the garden, I can show this again with a bag around it, or how I do it. But that's going to be a while. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and happy gardening.